Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. We're on chapter 22 of Genesis. If you want to join us, and I'm reading out of the King James Version. If you want to add any comments in the comment section, if you have any other books that might add to this and help us learn more about it, I'm just going to chat about it. I'm not saying that I'm going to teach about it. I'm just going to share thoughts on it. But if you'd like to share some thoughts there from any other books, that's fine. You might use the Torah, you might use the Quran, you might use the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Mormon, the Book of Moses, Doctrine and Covenants. I did say Dead Sea Scrolls, but also the Apocrypha. You want to use any of those and make any comments, that's fine, but cite them. So if we want to look them up, we know where to find them. Okay, and in English, because most people, this is an English site, so you can do it in both languages, but please do it in English so I can read it too, and whoever else speaks English. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 22 commentary is Abraham is commanded to sacrifice Isaac, his son. Both father and son yield to the will of God. Abraham's seed will be as the stars and the sand in number. In his seed all nations will be blessed. And Rebekah is born to Bethuel. Verse 1. And it came to pass that these things that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Behold, here I am. Verse 2. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son, Isaac, thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. Now, he doesn't mean that Abraham only loved Isaac, because clearly we know that he loved Ishmael too. We clearly know that. So he's just probably saying, the only son I want you to bring up is Isaac, and reminding, even though you love him, or, the one that your son that you love, your loving son, your, that kind of a thing. Anyway, that would be what I'm thinking, because clearly we know from the other chapters, he does love Ishmael too. Okay. And he says, and offer him therefore a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. So you can imagine Abraham might be going, what? What in the world? And anyway. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took to him, and if you don't know what an ass is, it's a donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood. And Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. So he's taking 2 of his young men with him. So it doesn't say sons. It's probably 2 young men that work for them, to pull the donkey, because they have all these people that work for them. So he's probably pulling the donkey or whatever that's holding the wood, because it says it saddled his ass and took two of his young men with him. It's very possible that Abraham is pretty old. He's over 100 years old, because he had Isaac when he was 100. And so he could be riding the donkey. He very well could be riding the donkey. Isaac is pretty much older now, because he's probably, let's see, if we look at the scriptures, Isaac is probably 17 to 37 years old. We know that Sarah had him when she was 90. So, and she passed away, later on she passes away, of course, but he's between 17 and 37 years old. So he's a young guy, and we can think the donkey is carrying Abraham, or maybe he's carrying the wood, or maybe he's carrying Abraham and the men are carrying the wood. We don't know. But for some reason, he took more men, and maybe he thought that Isaac was going to like leave when he found out what was going on, because he has two more men. And he could have said, well, I'm going to have these two men hold him down. Who knows? Right? And then on the third day, this is verse 4. Then on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. 5, verse 5, and Abraham said unto, so they're walking a long ways. The place is afar off. So that donkey's probably for Abraham. And the young men are probably carrying the wood. So it kind of makes sense. And maybe even Isaac is carrying some wood. But it makes sense. Someone's carrying the wood, and they might have needed help, to tie him down or whatever, or set up the wood or whatever's going on, the altar. And Abraham said unto his young men, abide ye here with the donkey, with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you. So they wait, right? So apparently then, hey, right now they're there to help bring everything up. And Abraham took the wood. So it makes sense that Abraham could have been on the donkey. The men carried the wood. And then Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. Woo. So his son is laying down and he's setting wood on top of him. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both off them together. So he puts it on Isaac. So now Isaac is strong enough to hold this wood himself. Probably 17 to 37 years old. He's young enough, because it says, I will go yonder and worship with him. So he takes him away. Him and Isaac walk a bit farther. They walk yonder. And this time Isaac is carrying the wood. And I don't know if it was nighttime or daytime, but and he took the fire in his hand. So he's holding a knife and the fire, and the son is holding the wood. So still, let's see what happens, because you're going, oh, okay, I got the wood. Maybe something's going to come up, and right. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am my son. And Isaac spake unto Abraham's father and said, my father. And he said, here am I, my son. And he said, behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? So, and Abraham said, my son, God would provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both off them together. 9. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and I don't know how long that took, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. So he binds him up, bounds him up, be still, and just ties him up and just lays him down. So now, he could have struggled against a 100-year-old man, right? And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. So, what do we see here? And they came to the place which God had told of him, and Abraham built an altar there. So it's saying that Abraham built the altar and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. Interesting, because I know some people aren't into the New Testament, but I plan on reading that too. And it's interesting that Jesus Christ also was laid upon wood. And he was the sacrifice. According to the New Testament, was the sacrifice, the lamb sacrifice. And so it's interesting that that's a similarity going on here, because Isaac is supposed to be a sacrifice, and he's also laid upon the wood, but put on the wood. And so that's interesting. And okay, we'll go on. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. But, you learn one thing. You shouldn't rush into things and go, well, let me just do this, and then I'll answer him. He answered him first. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And again, he knows he has another son, but this is the birthright son. So he's saying, like, probably your only son from Sarah, the birthright wife, your real wife, your wife that is not a bondwoman wife, your wife from your religion, from your culture, the whole thing. And we read it in the past, Hagar had taken off to Egypt. So if that's so, she might not be hanging around all the time. She might be coming and going. She decided to go around her own group of people. So that might be another reason. Um, he's the one that's home. He's the one that's from her. And okay, so, and the other thing is son for eternity, because him and Sarah have maybe a sealing, some kind of a sealing that makes him like the only son, so to speak, because he's the only son that is sealed to Abraham and Sarah, to where Hagar is a whole different religion. So there would be no sealing with Abraham, and in their culture, no sealing of, of marriage, and that the son is sealed to Abraham. That's just another sign of that there's probably, a lacking of sealing for that to happen, because if they were both sealed, you know, maybe God is speaking in an eternity thing So also that's another thought. Um, so the other thing is that I wanted to mention here is um, be patient, patient, patience. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad. So neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his thorns, by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. 14. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah Jireh, as it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. Verse 15. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, in 16, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son. 17. That in so um, he's in 16, and said, By myself I have sworn. So this is like an oath. And usually when you make an oath with God, you do something, he does something, right? He says, I will do this if you do this. And so you're seeing this with a covenant people. Now, according to the Old Testament, Sarah is a covenant person with the Lord, not Hagar. Hagar is an Egyptian, and they have different religions, like Pharaoh's stuff going on. So they're a different religion. They make covenants to someone else or something else. Um, and so anyway, uh, so withheld thy son, thine only son. And again, he says thine only son, even though he knows he has another son, but only one son is under the covenant, and from the covenant wife, the birthright wife, that will be his son for the eternities, right? That makes sense. That in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed, as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. Now, if you want to know what seed is, it's children. So his posterity, that's what they're talking about, his seed. When it says your seed, it's the posterity of the person they're talking to. It's their children's and their children's children, and on down the line, and their children's children, children. It just goes on. Their children and their children. Um, okay. It says the people of the earth will be blessed. That's all over the world. And you think, how will they be blessed? Well, um, maybe if we read on along the way, we'll figure it out. 19. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. And 20, and it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor. 21, Huz, 21 first, Huz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kilmuel, the father of Aram, and 22, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethel, and 23 verse, and Bethel begot Rebekah. These 8, Milcah did bear 2 Nahors, Abraham's brothers. Wow, he's got 8 kids from Milcah. And verse 24, and his concubine, whose name was Reumah, she bare also Teba, and Gaham, and Dahash, and Maacshah, Maacshah, Maacshah. Okay, so here we see that his brother's probably a polygamist. He has a concubine, and it seems to be okay with God, and he's also married. And Abraham had Sarah and Hagar, and he, I guess you could say that was polygamy too. But the other thing I wanted to mention is clearly God knew that he wasn't going to have Abraham sacrifice Isaac. So let there be no one like, oh, well, God told me to do this or that. No, God never went through with it. So therefore, God doesn't go around telling people to kill other people, like, to sacrifice people. No, he doesn't. And some people, there years ago, there were people doing strange things, saying, well, God told them to, just like he did Abraham. But the difference is he knew he was going to stop Abraham. And if Abraham didn't stop, I'm sure the angel would have stopped him if he wasn't paying attention. But Abraham was a man that paid attention. Thank goodness. But God always knew what Abraham would do. He's omnipotent. Omnipotent. So he knew what Abraham was going to do. But probably who needed to know was Abraham. Abraham probably needed to know what he was going to do. He probably needed to prove to himself and go through the actions of what he would do, because one day there's going to be a judgment day, and God on judgment day is not going to say, you didn't do anything because I already knew you would do all this stuff. So here it is. You probably need the proof of your rights and wrongs. We probably need the proof of our rights and wrongs. Did we actually do this? Did we not? Because if God just would have said, I know you would have done it. So then, well, how do you know? You didn't give me a chance. So he gave Abraham a chance to do what he already knew Abraham would do. He already knew this. He already knew that Abraham would do it. He wouldn't have chose someone that would have just crazily didn't stop and pause and say, here I am. And, and then he could also stop him. He picked Abraham for a reason. Abraham was in that position for a reason. He pays attention. He listens to God. God was not going to shed innocent blood. He does not do that. He does not ask you to do it. And children are innocent. And even though Isaac was probably between 7 and 17 and 37, he was innocent because he wasn't coming after him in self-defense. This was just, an innocent person getting ready to be killed. And even if it was self-defense, he would still be innocent if it's self-defense because you have to defend yourself sometimes, right? But when it's murder is when someone attacks someone and they're just because no reason, no nothing to protect, nothing, whatever, and then they actually hurt, do kill them. So God knew. God knew that Abraham would pause and listen, and God always knew that um, He wasn't going to allow this to happen. He was probably showing Abraham that He wouldn't allow him to hurt his family, but showing Abraham his own faith and showing everyone else around too. Well, who knows what happens on that judgment day when other people say, I don't want to speak for that person, where they were bad. But what happens is He can say no, you know. So anyway, that's chapter 20 in Genesis. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you have any more commentaries, and if you do, don't argue with each other. Don't argue with anyone. Just put your comments down and pertain to yourself. Don't ever argue. Please just be nice. Thank you. Oh, if I see something mean, if I see it, I'll erase it for sure. So, but don't do it, please. Let's just have a good time sharing and sharing what books we come out. It's just a reading and it's just interesting. The Old Testament is just really interesting. So thanks for being with us.